Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Thank you for liking the live as well, Pablo. I'm retweeting it. You're always the first one in, brother. Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Free Forever, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Davey, yes, sir. Miles, let's go. Davey, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. Hope you're okay, mate. I'm doing great, Joe. Good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Evening, Miles. How's things? Autistic, things are great. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? How's your day going? It was good. My day was a very long day, but it was good. Good evening, Curtis. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Orphan, good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? T, hey, Miles. How are you? How are you? Good to see a bit of green today. Let's go, T. Absolutely facts. The market is actually doing pretty well for itself, to be fairly honest. It's reacting to all the positive news that's going on right now. And also, there's a thing going around that we might be seeing a rate cut happening this month, even though it was on the side of no rate cuts. But it seems like July could be the month of rate cuts with all the other regulation news that's happening right now. So this might be the month to look out for. Now, let's do the intro, disclaimer, essentially what we're going to be talking about tonight's live, and by that time, everyone's tuned in for the first spot. Welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMS stands for Crypto Miles Family, and my name is Miles. You can tune into this live Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. London time onward. 10 p.m. London time onwards, where I share the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Pretty much everything you need to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. And also, this is episode 330 of the CMF Live, which is incredible that we're on episode 330. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And we also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you ever do have any questions or even statements to make, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. Now, on tonight's live, we're going to be talking about quite a lot of market spaces around the world. We're going to be talking about the European market space on tonight's live. We're going to talk about essentially the Middle Eastern market space, the Asian market space, the American market space, when it comes essentially to the crypto market space and even the stock market, regarding tariff situations and BRICS situations and contracts and announcements and reports. Quite a bit to essentially cover on tonight's live. Now, before we go through the first news, which is regarding the European Union and the whole tariff situation that's going on, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the first news. So let's see where we were at. So we were at here. Susie, evening all. Good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? How are you, Miles and CMF? Lena, good to see you as well. How you doing, Lena? How you been? Manny, good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles. Mikhail, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you. So how you doing? How you been? Curtis says, Susie, long time no see. Shelly, morning, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well, Shelly. How you doing? Morning. How you been? Good evening, Miles. How are you doing? I'm doing great, Callie. Good to see you as well. Perfect timing, because we're about to go through the first news on tonight's live, which is regarding the European tariff situation or the rest of the world tariff situation. Now, a few nights ago on this live, I revealed that essentially Europe is about to be having conversations with Washington, and that it's something that we should consider that could impact the crypto market space and the stock market regarding this whole tariff situation. Well, we have an update regarding European tariffs regarding the Trump administration, which I'm going to share with you now, and other updates regarding other tariff policies that are going around. So, European Union stuck in a limbo as tariffs essentially talks drag on. Donald Trump added 6 more countries to his growing trade war list on essentially today, releasing new tariffs, warning letters to leaders of the Philippines, Brunei, Moldova, Algeria, Iraq, and Libya. The announcements were once again made by Trump through screenshots posted on Truth Social, confirming that the total number of countries hit with fresh tariff demands has now reached 20 countries. 20 countries right now essentially are being impacted by tariffs from the Trump administration. More countries will be impacted soon. Trump had teased the decision that the night before, calming that he would essentially release names of minimum of 7 countries by morning and more later in the day. He's only named 6 so far, and did not explain whether the 7th letter was dropped or even delayed. These letters arrived just 48 hours after Trump sent them near identical messages to 14 other countries regarding tariffs, including Japan essentially got a letter, South Korea got a letter, Malaysia got a letter from Trump administration, Kazakhstan, South Africa, Laos, Bosnia, Tunisia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Serbia, Cambodia, Thailand. All these nations have been hit by tariffs today from the Trump administration. All 20 letters are essentially each 2 pages long, signed by Trump himself, and declare that the new US import tariffs will begin August 1st. The letters inform each leader that their country, essentially exports, will face tariffs between 20% and 40%, depending on our relationship with your country. Trump also added that the adjustments to those rates are essentially perhaps possible, but only later if relationships improve between essentially our nation and those nations. The move is directly tied to Trump's earlier trade push on April 2nd, when he rolled out he called the Liberation Day tariffs, essentially when it first started. And that policy created a baseline 10% duty in essentially nearly all countries, and introduced even higher rates for dozens of nations he accused of exploiting US trade policies. The global market reaction was instant panic, but then the market restored itself. Trump froze those hikes within a week, promising a 90-day pause, which was essentially originally set to essentially end this week. Now, Trump signed an executive order delaying the tariff start date to August 1st. Despite the extensions, Trump also insisted essentially on Tuesday that there will be no change going forward. No extensions will be granted in any sort of way to any nation around the world. While 20 countries have already been served, the European Union is still waiting for their tariff policies regarding the whole Trump administration. Trump's earlier essential reciprocal tariffs deadline for the EU expired July 9th, but no agreement has been finalized with the EU yet. Brussels had aimed to reach a framework by that date to dodge the same tariffs already hitting other nations, but that did not happen. Trump told reporters we're probably 2 days off sending them essentially a letter. We are talking to them, hinting that a final decision was close. During a cabinet meeting essentially today, Trump said they treated us very badly until recently. Now they're treating us very nicely. It's like a different world. Trump added they were among the toughest to deal with regarding the EU. Trades between the US and the EU was worth 1.68 trillion, essentially euros, which is roughly about $1.97 trillion in 2024, for example, including both goods and services. The EU had 50 billion euro surplus due to its gains in good trade. Even though it ran a deficit on the services, Trump has repeatedly criticized the imbalance between what the US is receiving and what other countries are receiving in terms of trade policies. Now, Howard Lungton, US's Commerce Secretary, said during an interview on CNBC today at the Power Lunch that the European Union, to their credit, has now made significant real offers. And he said the deal also includes opening EU markets to American farmers, ranchers, and fishermen, and that essentially claimed that the president got those deals on his desk and is thinking about even he wants to play them. Trump is expected to settle on a 10% base tariff for the EU with the room for exemption, specific essentially industries that's far less than the 50% rate he's previously floated. Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European we continue to work in good faith. We are also getting ready for all the scenarios, she said during a speech to the European Parliament today. Peter Chase Sr., also fellow at the German Marshall Fund, broke it down on CNBC Squawkbox Europe today. He said, it's the importer who pays the tariff, not the exporter. If the Europeans have a tariff of 10% and Korea has a tariff of 25%, then an American business is paying more for the same product from Korea than it would be paying for one from Europe. He added also European businesses will therefore deal with it, but it's the American customer that's the one that's going to be paying for it all. Yes, it's very temporary regarding tariffs, and it's actually going to work out in the long run. It will work out better for the United States because they have been treated quite bad. The US actually pays quite a lot of money to different countries around the world, a lot of countries around the world, but they don't get the same respect back, to be fairly honest. However, regarding essentially the tariff situations or tariff policies that are going on, so far 20 countries have received tariffs. The EU hasn't received their tariffs, but it could be hit with 10% baseline, you could say, or even a little bit of an increase from Trump's policies. But the good thing is the crypto market hasn't reacted in a drastically bad way. The first time tariffs happened, the crypto market was hit with a massive blow, even though the crypto market should have reacted as a hedge against those types of scenarios. But it didn't, and it was seen as a much more risky asset to enter into. As time went by, the whole tariff situation becomes essentially, it comes to a stage where the market is just pricing in that scenario, you could say. So now, you fast forward to today when tariffs are essentially hit, 20 countries are hit with tariffs, the EU is about to get hit with tariffs, and the crypto market is actually doesn't care. The crypto market is actually on the positive side, not the negative side, which is good to see, which means these are indications that the crypto market is actually seen as a hedge against these traditional financial situations or these tariff policies or geopolitics and so on, rather than as a riskier asset to enter into and exit out from, essentially. So good to see that happening. And I did say there are two outcomes on the table once the tariff situation essentially happens. It's either going to be the crypto market reacts the same way it always does, panic, or it's actually going to react as a hedge against that scenario, which it did. Now, because today even the market is doing very well for itself. Now, we're going to move on essentially from the tariff policy trades to the Clarity Act onto that slide. The Clarity Act is going to bring a lot of benefit for the crypto space because it's going to justify, essentially what will be considered under essentially commodities or securities and so on. It will give a better explanation of what a cryptocurrency is or what each token essentially is and which category it's under. Which is something we need inside the crypto space. Now, before we go through the Clarity Act, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the Clarity Act news. Let's see where we're at. And as I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or statements to make, put them down inside the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. So let's see where we're at. Callie, good evening, Miles. How are you doing? I'm doing great, Callie. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? One Love. Hi, Miles and CMF. Hope everyone is well. Good to see you. One Love. How you been? Cheers, CMF. Let's go, Semper. Funky Brother, good evening, Miles and CMF family. Good to see you all, Funky Brother. How you doing? I saw the live debate regarding Brad Garlinghouse today. I hope it was bullish. It was all bullish. Seemed like it. The market has reacted in a positive way. So is XLP. Good day, Miles and CMF. Mike, good to see you all. How you doing? How you been? Hey, Miles and CMF. Comatose, good to see you all. How you doing? How you been? We're going to talk about Brad a little bit later on tonight's live. Hey, Comatose, good to see you all. How you doing? How you been? Alex, good to see you all. How you doing? How you been? Dash, hello, Matthew, bro. Good to see you as well, Dash. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles of CMF. Golden Dragon. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? XRP just hit $2.40. Let's go, Funky Brother. Just getting ready for the next crypto week. Let's go. So, Clarity Act. The Clarity Act may essentially let companies like Tesla, Meta, or any other company that's trying to get involved in tokenization of their stocks, they can bypass the SEC in a certain way. So the Clarity Act is actually going to bring a lot of institutions to the table because it's going to clarify what a cryptocurrency is, and so there's no more gray areas on that matter. So, and there is one person against the idea of a Clarity Act, and if you could take a guess of who that may be, if you did guess to yourself, it's probably Senator Elizabeth Warren. You were correct. So, Senator Elizabeth Warren has raised concerns that the Clarity Act could let companies like Tesla and Meta or any other company tokenize their stocks on the blockchain platforms. This move would potentially exempt these shares from the SEC's regulations, alerting the financial landscape right now. The act essentially is under intense scrutiny as it could enable major companies to bypass traditional regulatory frameworks, and Tesla and Meta or any other company are at that center of discussion right now, with Senator Warren emphasizing the regulatory gaps that might emerge. Potential regulatory shifts could have widespread impacts on market operations, investor behavior, and traditional financial structures. Concerns involve the escape of critical oversight by authorities on essentially significant companies moving their assets on chain. Financial implications include changes in capital flows and also investment diversification strategies. These shifts could impact both equity and crypto markets, creating new dynamics inside the sector. Under the House bill, a publicly traded company like Meta or Tesla could simply decide to put its stocks on the blockchain, and essentially, poof, it would escape all SEC regulations, is what Senator Elizabeth Warren is coming out and saying. I just want to say, why does Senator Elizabeth Warren insist to always stand on the wrong side of history? I don't understand that part in any sort of a way. It could be because Senator Elizabeth Warren is backed by, let's just say, the old school banks who know that essentially, as time goes by, there's no need for a bank anymore because people could just do wall-to-wall transactions. And that Senator Elizabeth Warren is getting backed by some major big players inside the banking field that want to keep everything traditional instead of going digital. But with Senator Elizabeth Warren stating the words of, if essentially Meta or Tesla essentially tokenize their stocks, poof, there goes all the regulations from the SEC. Is she a moron? The regulation is coming from the SEC. She's saying as if they're just making up the Clarity Act out of thin air, signing it in the Senate and calling it a day. It's the SEC that's creating the Clarity Act. So I don't think it's going to be Tesla tokenizes their stocks. Poof, there goes the SEC regulations. It's the SEC that's creating the regulation. Honestly, Senator Elizabeth Warren was genuinely the most comedian of all politicians, because she never makes any sense on whatever she essentially spews about, all the lies regarding the cryptocurrency space or any other essentially sector inside the market space. She's lied in the past, and I've essentially said where she lied, and essentially I showed regarding proof on that matter of how she lied and so on. But this one is just completely absurd. She's saying that the SEC can't control them because they'll tokenize their stocks, but it's the SEC creating the regulation. How does that all make sense? The proposed act could prompt discussions on regulatory standards and the SEC's authority over innovations in public equities. Stakeholders essentially may observe significant challenges in maintaining essentially regulatory consistency across digital and traditional assets. Long-term outcomes also might include increased interest and activity in real-world essentially events, historical events, and suggests that regulators will need new measures to address blended essentially technologies and financial innovation, considering past oversight debates over digital assets, as a highlighted essentially in Brad's Gurninghouse essentially testimony, which we're going to go for later on tonight's live. Now, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission SEC member Hester Pierce also issued a blanket warning for companies considering distributing and trading tokenized securities. She said on a statement from the SEC, Hester Pierce said, and called on companies to discuss essentially their potential tokenized offerings with the SEC, aimed essentially new entrants and many traditional firms embracing on-chain products. There's a lot of companies right now lining up and thinking about the idea of essentially tokenizing their stocks. The New York Stock Exchange has even essentially dabbled with the idea of creating a 24/7 stock market for the New York Stock Exchange. Now, though the SEC commissioner, who also added the agency's crypto task force, did not explicitly mention trading platforms like Robinhood, for example, her notice came roughly 2 weeks after the company launched a tokenized focused layer 2 blockchain. As powerful as a blockchain technology is, it does not have magical essentially abilities to transform the nature of the underlying asset, said essentially Hester Pierce. Tokenized securities are still securities. And accordingly, market participants must consider and adhere to the federal securities laws when transacting essentially in these instruments. Pierce essentially remarks echoed those essential former SEC chairman Gary Gensler, who frequently called on companies considering offering crypto-related products that could be regarded as securities to come in and talk to officials. However, the US financial regulator has suggested that it was moving into a new direction for the crypto industry since the inauguration of essentially US President Donald Trump and the confirmation of the SEC chairman, obviously Paul Atkins. Now, Robinhood's strategy would allow the platform to offer essentially tokenized US stocks and exchange essentially ETF products to investors in Europe. The company also seemed to be aware of the potential impact on US securities laws, reportedly submitting proposals to the SEC for a framework regulated essentially tokenized real-world asset in May. When unique aspects of a technology warrant changes to existing rules or where regulatory essential requirements are outdated or unnecessary, we stand ready to work with market participants to craft an appropriate exemption and modernize rules, said Pierce. Republican lawmakers in the U.S. House of Representatives have announced essentially that they planned to move forward with consideration of a bill to establish clear regulatory rules of the road for digital assets. The crypto market structure framework under the proposed Digital Assets Market Clarity Act could clarify the roles of the SEC and the CFTC and would essentially be a much more better essentially way of going forward with it, because then there's no more gray areas. There's too many gray areas inside the crypto space because we don't have regulations, and the US is joining the game quite late, but they're joining it quite big, you could say, because they're aiming for the capital of cryptocurrencies. But it's nice to see that senators are coming forward, Republican senators are coming forward, and essentially trying to move a bill forward for a Clarity Act for essentially cryptocurrency, so that institutions can actually enter the market space, because then they know, for example, what is XRP, what is XLM, XDC, HBAR, Solana, Cardano, AVAX, and so on, which category to go under, and there's no more confusion or any sort of gray areas. Now, moving on from essentially that news regarding the SEC and the Clarity Act and Elizabeth Warren's moronic opinions to the UK. So, as we all know, that the world is moving more and more into the digital sector. And the more we move into a digital world, the harder it's going to become to essentially be a part of the crypto space. This decentralized, essentially, crypto space we're living in right now isn't going to be a reality later on. It's actually going to get very centralized. A lot of people inside the crypto space genuinely do believe that we're moving towards a decentralized world where everybody gets to do whatever they want and be private and have a lot of privacy around them. The reality of it is, the further we go into a digital world, the more centralized it's going to get, because we live in the real world, not la la land in this world that we live in, it's all about greed and power and so many other worse things. So we're not moving into a decentralized world. We're actually moving into a much more centralized world as time goes by. Now, if you are somebody that holds cryptocurrencies in a very centralized world, then obviously you are one above everybody else inside the retail section, because then you have some sort of, power, you could say, in some sort of way, because of the money that you have, which is cryptocurrencies and not just CBDCs in a digital world. So on that basis, the UK is about to enforce a very strict ID rules for crypto users in 2026. It's going to get more difficult for you to be able to buy cryptocurrencies as we move forward. So if you are somebody that's entering into the cryptocurrency world now, move faster. And if you are somebody that's essentially is trying to still think faster. And if you are somebody already inside the crypto space, but the people around you that aren't, maybe mention it once or twice more, because rules are getting very strict regarding cryptocurrencies. Because the governments want you in CBDCs. They don't really like the idea of cryptocurrencies. They like the idea of CBDCs because they can control it. If everybody lived off of cryptocurrencies, what's the point of a parliamentary system? They can't control you. They can't tell you what to do, because you hold the power when it comes to cryptocurrencies, but they want you on CBDCs. They don't mind the idea of some of you being in crypto, but the majority or everyone will be on CBDCs no matter what. But here it is, starting January 1st, 2026. The UK government will require crypto users to provide detailed identification information when using digital asset services. They're actually trying to apply strict ID rules for crypto users. The move is a part of a broader push to strengthen anti-money laundering efforts and enhance oversight of the rapidly growing crypto sector. It's not really for those reasons, it's more on reasons of control, but obviously you know how it is. They always label it something else when in reality it's just something else. According to the new rules, crypto users in the UK must disclose their full name, date of birth, residential address, country of residence, and tax identification number to service providers. This includes exchanges, wallets, and other crypto-related platforms operating in the country. The regulation is aligned with the global standards and is aimed to preventing the misuse of digital currencies for illicit activities like money laundering, funding illicit activities, or financing illicit activities, and tax evasion. The UK's tax authority, H&M Revenue Customs, HMRC, will oversee compliance with these rules. Users who fail to provide the necessary information risk facing a penalty of up to £300, approximately $480. Crypto service providers will be responsible for collecting and verifying this data. So if you do decide to lie to your government about how much, essentially, where you're holding your cryptocurrencies, essentially, if there's an exchange, for example, or you have a wallet, the government wants to know. The British government wants to know. It's not just the British government, to be fairly honest. The world is eventually going to be on that path where every government wants to know where you hold your cryptocurrencies and which wallet, how much you're holding, which exchanges do you use, where are you based, where do you live, what's your age, what's your name, and so on. Crypto service providers will be responsible for collecting and verifying this data, which means you're responsible for yourself. If you do lie, the exchange will be there to tell you or tell your government that you're lying. Ensuring users meet the requirements for essentially offering services. This effectively brings crypto under the same kind of scrutiny and record essentially keeping already familiar in traditional financial worlds. The announcement has sparked debates within the crypto community. Supporters argue that it would add legitimacy and protect investors, for example. Critics, however, see it as a blow to the financial privacy and decentralized finance. For UK residents actively trading or even holding digital assets right now, the upcoming regulation means preparing early. Users should ensure their personal documentation is up to date and ready to be submitted to platforms they use. Crypto platforms are also expected to adjust their onboarding and KYC, know your customers, for example, procedures to comply with the new laws. This may also lead to stricter verification processes and longer approval times for new accounts. With this regulation, it may feel restricted to some. It reflects the growing trend of governments integrating crypto into their financial systems with a tighter regulatory framework. This tells you two things. One, how close you are getting to a digital world. January 1st, the UK is about to get very strict on cryptocurrencies. Very strict on cryptocurrencies, January 1. The other indication is that essentially how close we are getting to that digital world, which means, the closer we get to a digital world, the closer we are to regulations. Regulations equals utility. There's good and bad, but the good actually weighs out the bad, but only if you're holding the correct cryptocurrencies. Going into a regulated world regarding cryptocurrencies, and if you're holding, moronic coins, then it's going to be very difficult. But if you're holding essentially coins that you should be holding going into a digital world on the regulations, you're perfectly fine. And obviously there are a few here and there that will pass through the railings without a doubt. As I said previously, if you're somebody that is, for example, into meme coins, it's not really recommended. But if you're somebody that's into meme coins in any sort of a way and going into digital world on regulations, believe it or not, I will always said that recording meme coins, that I think personally that, you know, Shiba Inu, because of his community and his contracts, will, you know, do well for itself. Dodge will do well because of Elon Musk, and Luna will do well because of his community. Other than that, I have no other perspectives on meme coins. But if you're holding essentially also XLM, XDC, HBOR, Cardano, AVAX, essentially Solana, and so on, or TON, then you have an incredible future ahead of yourself in this digital world that we're heading. But we are getting very close. The UK is even getting ready on January 1st right now. Now, the Federal Reserve June minutes data has come out, which we're going to go through on tonight's live, which the crypto market actually reacted not in a negative way to the news, to be fairly honest. Before we go through that news, let's consider the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you have questions or comments or even statements to make, put it down inside the comment section. Let's see where we're at. We were at here, I think, yeah. Good to see you, Miles. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Miles, BTC got to 111,500. Let's go, Candy. Thank you for the update on the price. Miles, can we reach Europea again without rate cuts? Can we reach those types of levels without rate cuts? Yes, it's possible with regulations. It's either rate cuts that's going to push us, but rate cuts will only push the market space up to a certain extent. It's regulations that's going to push it even further and beyond. So regulation is what we really want. Rate cuts will just be a cherry on top, to be fairly honest. Elizabeth Warren is bed with Biden and Gary Gensler. Yeah, I believe. Warren pretends to be a very important person, and she does not essentially want to be investigated. That's true. Or maybe she's backed by the Democrats. That's also true. Even Miles and CMF. Let's go, Jason. Good to see you. How you been? Hello, Miles and CMF. Mav, good to see you. How you been? T, all these politicians are a joke. Don't they know how? Don't they know have got away with all their BS for this long? I 100% there with you, honestly. Greetings, Miles and CMF. A lot of going on. Brutal week here in Texas. Yes, there's also the flooding situation, if I'm not mistaken, has happened inside the United States. I'm so sorry to everybody that might have, lost someone or essentially had their properties damaged from the flooding situation in the US. And going back to what he said, all these politicians are a joke. I don't know how they got away with all of this for so long. Honestly, if you are somebody that has a child, for example, if I wanted to restart life and I wanted to choose a career path, I'll just become a politician. Honestly, if I had a chance, do you know what people say to you? If you had a choice to go back, what job or something, what career path would you choose? If I could go back, I wouldn't choose a career path to become an engineer or a doctor or essentially a lawyer. I would actually choose to become a politician, genuinely, because day in and day out, I will do absolutely jack squat, lie through my teeth 24/7, and get paid pretty damn well, and take free vacations on taxpayers' money. Honestly, if I could ever go back as a new career, I'll just become a politician. Lie through my teeth 24/7 is what they do, essentially. Use taxpayer money to buy whatever I want and get away with anything I want, pretty much. And do nothing, day in, day out. Just go on live news, say a few lines, complete lies, and go back and get paid. Politicians have the easiest job in the world, honestly. Get up, lie, get paid, go to sleep. Greetings, Miles. Let's go. Ray, good to see you, brother. How you doing? And regarding the Texas situation, yep, I agree. Miles, since Trump wants to lower or eliminate taxes on crypto, it would be foolish to try and hide your crypto in the US. In the US, yes, if he does that 100%, it would be very foolish to hide your cryptocurrencies if they essentially don't tax it. But then they might not tax it for the first or second year or the third year, and then the fourth year they start taxing you. So you consider that. Don't ever just think about today, think about tomorrow. Miles, I will be out of this country on New Year's Eve. Let's go, funky brother, for that. Where are you going? I hope XRP can hit 10,000 by then. Let's go, funky brother. What happened on January 1st in the UK? What's happening on January 1st? January 1st in the UK, they're going to be introducing essentially January 1st, in the UK, they're going to be introducing stricter rules for IDs regarding cryptocurrency purchases. Hi, Miles. Let's go CMF. Peg, let's go. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? I do not think even the Dems want to deal with Elizabeth Warren. Nobody wants to deal with her, I'll be honest. What happened if you don't tell government if you hold crypto? Then that's up to you. The fine is up to £300 so far. If I wanted to be rich, I would choose to become a politician. Yeah, honestly. Preach, Miles, about the politicians. Let's go, Peg. Hello, Miles and CMF. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Now, but honestly, though, parents always say to their children, when you grow up, you should become a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. Forget about becoming a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. Just become a politician. Best job in the world. You don't do anything, and you get paid to do nothing. Basically, you get paid to lie and do nothing. What better job there is? I mean, there's no other better job out there, honestly. Paid to lie and sleep and eat and steal. Why would anyone want to become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer? You could become a politician, just steal from taxpaying money. Like and retweet, like everyone. Let's go, Peg. Thank you so much for saying that. If you have already liked and retweeted this live and you're watching this on X, thank you so much, CMF members. If you haven't liked and retweeted this live and you're watching this on X, CMF members, take 2 seconds to like and retweet the live if you watch us on X and put a comment outside the live. Hashtag anything you want inside the comment section outside the live. If you watch us on YouTube, just drop a like and drop a comment outside the live as well. Thank you for reminding me on that, Peg. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Funky brother, I'll go to the UAE only if XRP moves. Otherwise, I'll just pay taxes here. Fair enough. Theos, how are you? How are you doing, man? I'm doing great. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Now, Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve June minutes inflation stability focus drives market attention. Federal Reserve released its June meeting minutes essentially on July 10th, highlighting the stable long-term inflation expectations. Participants expressed concerns over the raising short-term expectations, which could influence prices and wages. The discussions underscores the Fed's focus on inflation. The emphasis on inflation stability reflects economic policy nuances, with potential essentially market volatility implications. The crypto market might experience shifts as investors react to perceived monetary policy changes. Well, we've had the report essentially come out, but it hasn't essentially done any sort of drastic essentially movements on the crypto space, not in a negative way especially. The crypto market has been quite positive today. The Federal Reserve's June meeting minutes reveal a focus on long-term inflation expectation, as discussed essentially on July 10th. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell and essentially the FOMC highlighted the importance of maintaining essentially stability in recent short-term expectation spikes. Participants caution about these short-term expectations influencing long-term views and affecting prices and wages setting in a new term. Market essentially participants are closely monitoring these updates, which hint at potential macroeconomic adjustments. Although no immediate essentially rate cuts are anticipated for July's discussions about a potential adjustment in September suggest ongoing policy evaluations. Lloyds Bank commented that the minutes of the US Federal Reserve June meeting are not expected to change the market's expectation that the rates will remain unchanged in July's meeting. With any new essentially adjustments more likely to occur in September, crypto markets are exhibited essentially increased volatility following the Fed's release. Bitcoin and Ethereum saw correlated price movements aligning with historical precedents where such monetary signals influence digital asset valuations. Lloyds Bank noted that the rate stability expectations remain unchanged, emphasizing that September as a more favorable period for adjustments. And I just want to point out that there are actually some researchers and essentially analysts that are coming out and suggesting that July, this month that we're in, could be once again on the table for rate cuts. But according to Lloyds Bank, we're looking more on the sides of September than essentially July. Let's see what actually happens as time goes by regarding rate cuts. As I said beforehand, is Jerome Powell going to be coming out and doing rate cuts, or is he just going to still be essentially anti-Trump and not do rate cuts and damage the entire world's economy? Because obviously, if the US market sneezes, the world market catches a cold. Now, Emirates Airlines is what we're going to talk about next. Moving on from the Fed report, which it didn't do any damage to the crypto space. The crypto space is actually doing quite positive. But moving on from that to Emirates Airlines. Emirates Airlines has partnered with Crypto.com to accept Bitcoin payments. But just want to point that out, they're actually not just accepting Bitcoin payments, they're actually accepting over 100 different types of cryptocurrencies. So here it is. Emirates Airlines has taken a very bold step to integrate crypto for essentially for flight payments. To achieve this rate essentially feature, the airline giant has signed an agreement with Crypto.com exchange to use its crypto payment services on essentially Crypto.com Pay. Both Crypto.com and the Emirates stand to benefit from this integration, while Crypto.com would gain exposure through Emirates is poised to expand the use case of blockchain through airlines. As revealed in a press release, Emirates and Crypto.com have signed essentially an MOU to explore the use of cryptocurrency payments. According to the agreement, Emirates would integrate Crypto.com Pay within its own payment systems. The integration, essentially, which is expected to take effect next year, will allow Emirates customers to use crypto for payments. This means essentially customers can pay for their flight tickets using cryptocurrencies. 100 different types of cryptocurrencies are accepted. Emirates stated that the proposed integration with Crypto.com is designed to meet the evolving customer preference. Notably, the Gen Z and millennials essentially are more tech savvy and prefer to use digital assets for payments. As Emirates meets the evolving needs of its customers, it also expands the everyday use cases for crypto. The airline aims to bring more momentum to the digital asset industry. The goal for Emirates and Crypto.com is to provide genuine and innovative financial solutions for their customers. Emirates is one of the many operating international airlines that has been targeted towards essentially integrating crypto into their payment systems in recent years. In May, Dubai's listed essentially Air Arabia, revealed plans to accept UAE dirham-backed stablecoin AU coin for their flight bookings. Moreover, several international travel agencies and hotels already accept Bitcoin transfers and some of the cryptocurrencies. Alternative Airlines is a major essentially travel player that has stayed true to the blockchain ecosystem over the past few years. The platform enables users to book their flights for various airlines, offering the option of paying essentially using over 100 different types of cryptocurrencies. But now, if you are somebody that's thinking about later on in life moving to essentially the UAE, you could actually use the cryptocurrencies to pay for essentially your trip. But the biggest thing on this is essentially that more the idea of essentially more companies joining the crypto space is brilliant to see. Even though if there are airlines, it's still good to see that crypto is being integrated more and more into essentially businesses that people would use on a daily basis or weekly basis, depending on how much you travel, or monthly. Now, moving on from essentially the UAE airlines to Trump, rate cuts, and a new perspective. So yesterday on this live, essentially, I shared the news regarding essentially Trump and how once again he came out and said that the Fed chairman needs to be fired. Well, there is also now a second opinion on the matter of should Jerome essentially Powell be fired or not. Piper Sandler backs Trump's call for Fed rate cut and highlights crypto market implications. If you wonder yourself, who the hell is this person? Well, Trump's assertion that the Federal Reserve should cut interest rates has received support from investment bank Piper Sandler, according to their recent analysis centered around economic factors and digital asset market dynamics. So, an investment bank has come forward and backed Trump that Jerome Powell is not doing his job correctly by essentially doing rate cuts and blaming the tariff situation of why he's essentially holding off on the idea of rate cuts. So even an essentially investment bank has come out and said, look, Jerome Powell should be doing rate cuts. Not only that, but a former chairman of the World Bank also came out and said that Jerome Powell should be doing rate cuts, and blaming Trump for tariffs for not doing rate cuts is just stupidity. A lot of high-profile people are now coming out standing essentially with Donald Trump and saying Jerome Powell is an absolute moron. It's good to see that's happening. Analysts anticipate the proposal could impact monetary policy and aid the crypto market's integration with traditional financial systems. Piper Sandler, essentially a leading U.S. investment bank, has aligned with the former President Trump's essentially public position on Federal Reserve interest rates. Now, the bank's research focused on the potential benefits of such a potential essentially policy shift. Analysts note that this aligns with their expectations for positive economic impacts, especially essentially citing the crypto market's potential growth. The proposal could essentially simulate the integration of digital assets into more financial systems. In line with these insights, Patrick Moley and Will essentially Cobb's, Piper Sandler's key researchers, emphasize market activities, citing supportive trends for Bitcoin and other digital assets. Their findings essentially resonate with Trump's stance and underscores increased regulatory clarity with as essentially a crucial factor for the growth of this sector, which is referring to the crypto sector. And they're saying that essentially the more regulations we have for the crypto sector inside the United States, the bigger essentially growth we're going to be seeing inside the crypto sector, because institutions will come into the play. Given the pace of innovation, it's clear that direct clearing models will also be impacted by essentially impeding changes like 24/7 trading and essentially clearing. CFTC staff are now contemplating whether 24/7 trading and a direct clearing model will be collateral needs to be essentially exchanged in real time is even possible without the creation and the adoption of a new forms of collateral like tokenization, which are not limited by bank hours. Caroline D. Pam, essentially acting chairman of the CFTC, said stablecoins like USDC also may benefit significantly should legislative clarity advance, enhancing fiat and crypto essential exchanges. Scholars do suggest also that the bank's endorsement further cements a promising landscape for cryptocurrencies, and parallel potential US moves to accumulate Bitcoin could also signal a profound policy shift, impacting essentially global crypto markets and economics. While regulatory responses remain essentially nuanced, industry optimism about potential crypto cycle momentums continues among stakeholders. Absent essentially direct Fed commentary from Piper Sandler, their insights reflect broader street views and potential policy impacts if Trump's preferred path materializes. So, another high-profile person coming out and saying that why hasn't Jerome Powell done rate cuts so far, and that what Trump is actually trying to achieve is actually going to benefit the United States. And with essentially that happening, it's also going to be helping the crypto market space growth sector when regulations happen. So they're saying Trump doing crypto regulations is good for cryptocurrencies because we'll see much more growth in the crypto sector because of that, because regulations equals utility. And also saying that we do need to have rate cuts, and why is Jerome Powell, not doing rate cuts? Jerome Powell is like a child. He's just throwing a tantrum because he doesn't like Trump, honestly. Now, moving on from that to this. US stock market cap reaches a record of 208% of GDP. The US stock market essentially capitalization to GDP ratio has reached an unprecedented 208 following gains from tech giants like Nvidia, now valued at $4 trillion. The 208% market cap to GDP ratio signals excessive market essentially exuberance, promoting Warren Buffett to increase Berkshire Hathaway's cash reserves, potentially affecting risk assets, including cryptocurrencies, is what they're suggesting. Nvidia's rise to $4 trillion valuation has propelled the US stock market to a record high cap to GDP ratio of 208%. The increase from prior levels was accelerated by gains in technology stocks, which dominated the crypto market landscape. Prominent figures like Warren Buffett have remarked essentially on these valuations. Buffett, the CEO of essentially Berkshire Hathaway, describes such levels akin to playing with fire, suggesting caution right now. His company's move to bolster cash holding signals potential market instability. Now, Warren Buffett did the exact same move back in, before 2 years before the 2008 situation. He did essentially hold quite a lot of cash to be able to buy back. And even 3 years or 4 years before, he did it as well, regarding to the 2008 situation. Once again, Warren Buffett is obviously holding quite a lot of cash, selling quite a lot of shares, and thinking that the market is about to burst. And therefore, he's going to be ready, cash on hand, to buy it back up. Now, there's also the other perspective inside the market space that because a lot of things are happening, that the way Warren Buffett thinks is going to play out, it won't play out. Because back in 2008, we didn't have another form of essentially, let's say, alternative liquidity to enter into. We didn't have essentially tokenization, which is going to help the stock market become more transparent, essentially much more easier for investors to be able to join or grow their portfolios. But there's so many other factors that we didn't have back in 2008, like cryptocurrencies for adding liquidity, tokenizations, and all these features, or all the banks and institutions that are entering the crypto space. And let's not forget, we're at the beginning stages of regulations for cryptocurrencies. This is the early booms that we're going to be seeing. So that's the other perspective in the market space, that Warren Buffett is wrong because he's not factoring in that times have changed, and that Warren Buffett is still stuck in the olden days. The man still hates Bitcoin. He hates cryptocurrencies in general. But immediate effects on market include potential waves of risk on sentiments and speculative increases in tech, essentially equities. The broader market has essentially reflected in the S&P 500, has also witnessed gains attributed to major tech company performers. The financial implications involve increased caution among investors, institutional investors, as current valuations echo past speculative bubbles. Warren Buffett's actions are under scrutiny as investors weigh a long-term market views against short-term gains. Nearly 2 years ago, the ratio rose to an unprecedented level that should have been a very strong warning signal, Warren Buffett, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, said. Future outlooks suggest that markets may face essentially potential corrections. Historical trends also show that when the market cap to GDP ratio exceeds 200% above, a shift towards a more conservative investment position often follows, and signals predicts essentially regulatory or market adjustments if these essential conditions persist. But again, we can't compare to something in the past because we never had it in the past. We never had crypto or CBDCs or essentially retail CBDCs, wholesale CBDCs, or the world going into this digital factor. So we never had any of these plays back in the day. So you can't compare historical patterns when there are none when it comes to this sector that we're in. Especially that we're just about to get regulations, which means no more gray areas, which means more institutions can enter the market space and push the crypto space up because regulations equals utility. That is, again, something else that Warren Buffett is not factoring in. Now, President Trump is what we're going to talk about next, and BRICS. But before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. As I previously, this is live, which means if you have any questions or comments to make, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So, let's see what's going on inside the comment section, and then we go straight into the next news. How are you doing, man? I'm doing great, Feels. Let's go. Scott, hello, share the live. Let's go. Zach, I hope you're well, Miles. I'm doing great, Zach. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? And a pension Jack squad job. Regarding politicians, yes, I agree 100%. Now, President Trump warns of a possible 10% tariff on India. And apparently India's not happy about that, but they can't do anything about it. And apparently, regarding the whole BRICS situation, which pretty much came to an end because India was the first one to just, stay on the sidelines. And Russia said also they're not going to be creating a BRICS token, and that essentially they're not going to be planning on, competing with the US dollars, even though that was the whole point of BRICS. But that fell apart very quickly. But here's something. President Trump's warning, essentially, that he could slap an extra 10% on India over its role in the BRICS group has put New Delhi in a tight spot as it rushes to finalize a trade agreement with Washington. So India, just like any other nation out there, is running to Washington essentially to have some sort of discussions regarding their tariff policies. Now, India obviously still being a part of BRICS, but not really being part of BRICS. America wants to make sure where India stands before the tariff agreements are signed. So, apparently, the Trump administration will put a 10% extra tariff on India if they do decide to stay in BRICS. So, India has to choose what side of the spectrum they're standing on. To be essentially more accurate, for example, the EU and the UK and pretty much a lot of countries around the world are not allowed to essentially buy from Russia because Russia is being sanctioned. However, India buys oil from Russia, rebrands it, and sells it back to the EU, which means India's been standing on both sides of the spectrum. They've been standing on both teams, and America pretty much has had enough. Trump's administration, or Trump himself, has pretty much came out in the most, basic way, said, where do you stand? BRICS or with us? So he made the remarks essentially today, and just a day after saying he was close to sealing the deal as reported by Bloomberg. In his comments, Trump said India could face an additional levy alongside other BRICS members whom he labeled anti-American. He spoke shortly after suggesting essentially progress on the pact that Indian negotiators hope they will essentially spare them from the hefty essentially tariffs as they face now. Brazil and South Africa have publicly criticized Trump's remarks, but India stayed silent. India was an original BRICS member, but India has stayed silent when Trump spoke. Underlying essentially its efforts to balance its BRICS ties with its growing partnerships with the United States, India wants to play on both teams. They want to play in the BRICS team, do some trade deals with Russia, even though they're not supposed to, and also do some trade deals with the United States on a very low tariff policy. I think the Indian government is the one that's living in La La Land. Official essentially in New Delhi said they were not too worried. They noted that the US view that BRICS wants to weaken the dollar not fit India's aim. Those officials speaking on the conditions of the autonomy said India will not support a single BRICS currency. So far, India has come out and actually said to the United States they're not going to be a part of any BRICS currencies whatsoever to essentially put the US dollar to the sidelines, for example. Any talks on local currency trades are meant to only lower banking and foreign exchange risk. The press briefing, essentially, senior diplomat P. Comron said Prime Minister essentially Modi and Brazil's essentially president had no discussions on tariff threats during Modi's state visit to Brazil. We didn't have an opportunity to discuss that, he told the press. As India prepares to assume the BRICS chairmanship in 2026, it must distinguish itself from members such as China and Russia, who see the group as a way to push back against the US. So India is aiming to become the chairman of BRICS in 2026. But somehow it plans to also be alongside Donald Trump and be pro-American. How does that one going to work out? India has to choose. They can't just say we're not creating a currency with BRICS. We will never go essentially against the US dollars and so on, and then still work with Russia, which is sanctioned, and then also try to deal with the United States. The US is not having it anymore. India has to choose which side they stand on, US or China and Russia. Trump is unhappy with BRICS members who have been talking about an alternative reserve currency, said essentially Momin Kumar, a former Indian envoy and leader negotiator of the World Trade Organization. India has repeatedly made clear that local currency trade is not the same as de-dollarization. Over the years, successive essentially US administrators have cultivated India as a key essentially trade partner and a regional check on a raising essentially China. In April, US Vice President essentially J.D. Vance said the outcome of the 21st century is going to determine by the strength of the United States and India's partnership. These ties were strained after Trump claimed he broke a ceasefire between India and Pakistan in May. Modi pushed back, saying he did not use the trade as a tool to secure the truce. Meanwhile, the Trump administration outreach to Pakistani leaders, including the powerful army chief, has raised concerns in New Delhi. Much now depends on the proposal trade deal, which both sides aim to seal by this fall. Sasha, essentially, an opposition lawmaker on the led India's diplomatic response after the Pakistani conflict, said in London, essentially today, that if the terms are agreed, that will be essentially a healthy sign. After months of talks, Indian negotiators have offered their best proposal to Washington and await a response. Some of the observers say that Trump's fresh tariff essentially threats as a tactic to win more concessions with essentially New Delhi before finalizing the pact. Now, he warned also that in the past of 100% essentially duties on any BRICS members that move forward to de-dollarization. Experts urge a clear view of the differences between Trump's warnings and his actions. We need to distinguish between President Trump's narratives and his actions, said Mr. Kumar, and suggesting that India still has room to navigate a path that balances its BRICS role with its special ties to the United States. So, by the looks of it, India is still trying to play both sides, try to be with Trump and the US, but also try to be with BRICS. And then coming out and saying, essentially, we're not going to create a BRICS currency whatsoever because we don't want to go against US dollars. Look, India needs to choose. Otherwise, I'll be honest, India is the next country to get heavily tariffed or heavily sanctioned. And that's the last thing India wants. Because India has essentially also backstabbed China once. China has been essentially one of the biggest manufacturers for iPhones, for example, for Apple products. India came forward and said that because China essentially is trying to fight back with the US regarding tariffs, the Indian government said, to Apple, why don't you just bring your factories to India and we'll make your iPhones? Forget about China. So India has backstabbed China. They're a part of BRICS, but also want to be a part of the US. India's trying to be friends with everyone. That's going to backfire very bad on them. Now, that's what's going on right now in the BRICS section of the news. But moving on from that to Link2Go. Everybody knows inside the crypto space, if you've been inside the crypto space for the longest time, you must have heard of something called Link2Go, which was a platform that you could buy pre-stocks of companies that haven't launched or not even going to launch. So a very long time ago, a lot of people came across inside the crypto space by the name of a company called Link2Go, which they said that they're selling essentially Ripple shares, essentially stock Ripple shares that you can buy from them. And then when Ripple essentially goes public, you got in early. And a lot of people spent a lot of money buying Ripple shares that don't exist pretty much. And that's backfired very bad over time. And I got asked a very long time ago as well, would I ever enter, would I buy Ripple shares? A long time ago, people asked me a lot. They said, would I buy Ripple shares or would I buy XRP? And I've always told people, if I had the choice of what to buy, I'm buying XRP all day long. Why the hell would I want to buy Ripple shares? Not saying that Ripple's a bad company, because Ripple's a brilliant company, brilliant team, brilliant future ahead of themselves. But the thing is, for me, it's about volume. And you can get a lot more better on your return. You get better ROI if you go for XRP than you would go for Ripple shares. I'm just basing on that factor. But I also said that you shouldn't buy anything that doesn't exist. Buying a pre-sale of anything just goes wrong all the time. 99% it will go wrong. If you buy pre-sale of anything, 99% it will go wrong. And it could be in any field. You could buy a pre-sale of an apartment that hasn't been built yet. Somewhere down the line, they just won't build the apartments and you'll take a massive L. A pre-sale on a brand new crypto project. When was the last time a good one launched on a pre-sale? Never. Or a pre-sale essentially on a Ripple stock that never launched. The idea of a pre-sale is just 99% risk of failure. 1% it squeezes out somehow and actually becomes a reality. Always just consider that fact. In my point of view, it's always been 99% failure when it comes to pre-sale of anything. 1% chance it actually it pulls through. So the former CEO of Lintico right now, William, has been slammed with a securities fraud case action lawsuit against him. It's not looking too well right now for Lintico. The Lintico drama continues this week with a new court filing targeting the former CEO of the company, William Cyrus. Now, according to reports, popular Ripple advocate John E. Deaton has filed a securities fraud class action against Cyrus on behalf of thousands of retail investors, even as the company's shareholders move to fight an effort by this new management essentially to recognize the troubled company in its bankruptcy. I told a lot of people, don't go for Lintico. Don't go for company shares that don't exist yet. And everybody who listened to me stayed away from Lintico. But a lot of people did lose a lot of money from Lintico because, honestly, buying something pre-sale is just going to go bad. The suit essentially Deaton filed accuses Cyrus of orchestrating a multi-year scheme with undisclosed markups as high as 60%, misleading essentially exemptions, and unlicensed essentially sales tactics to peddle shares in private companies like Ripple and Kraken via SPVs on Lintico's platform. The filing alleges essentially Cyrus ignored internal legal memos in 2023 and 2024 that warned that the offerings violated multiple SEC and FINRA rules, including acting as an unregistered broker-dealer as well as running an unregistered investment company. The company wasn't even licensed, and there was a lot of crypto influencers that were promoting Lintico. A lot of people were sponsored by Lintico inside the crypto space. I don't know how the hell they didn't know they didn't have a license to operate. According to Deaton, the lawsuit targets Cyrus personally and is not subject to bankruptcy protections. The lawyer also vowed that any essentially recovery from liability insurance or settlements will go towards trying to make innocent investors whole again. The filing comes several months after another lawsuit by a former chief revenue officer, Gene, in October 2024. Gene alleged that internal and systematic compliance failures and claimed that he was dismissed after raising concerns. Lintico has now filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which means nobody's going to be getting paid, or some people will get paid at the end. So Lintico has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy aimed SEC and FNR investigations, citing serious defects in its corporate structure and operations that raise questions about what customers actually own. So another FTX type of situation where they have to file for bankruptcy. But the FTX filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy, which kept them safe for a little while, but then all went completely sideways when you had to go to prison. But, you know, Lintico went straight for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. However, new mergers essentially of the company have vowed to resist any claims. The managers who took over in recent months have put Lintico under court protection in Houston due to the scandal. SVN Group, essentially an Australian-based investment firm, has said it has essentially supports of the 52% of the shareholders for its campaign to challenge current managers in their bankruptcies. to the end. Spinning Group has consulted bankruptcy lawyers. It has also hired for advice on whether to try to dismiss the Chapter 11 petition or even take action. Regardless of what happens, they claim to have unchanged objectives, which is to preserve the value of Linktico and the value of the shareholders' investments. So an Australian company firm that did buy out Linktico is trying to push Linktico to succeed, but Linktico itself is about to be Chapter 11. Meanwhile, the US Securities Exchange Commission SEC investigation into Linktico and whether its former managers failed to do due diligence to ascertain if its customers were essentially accredited investors was sufficient financial backing to invest through the company continues. So pretty much Linktico had their office doors open. Anybody could buy crypto. Anybody could buy essentially Ripple shares that one didn't exist, and two, they just weren't doing background checks on no one. Anybody was more than welcome. As long as they had money to buy, Linktico was open. According to the company bankruptcy attorney Samuel A., Linktico's advisors are planning to use the bankruptcy process to raise funds to repay customers and other creditors. However, before it presents essentially a detailed proposal to creditors for a vote, the company will try to negotiate a bankruptcy payout loan for regulators. Now, we think that we have significant essential resources to make distributions to customers. David Schwartz told the U.S. bankruptcy judge. Periods. It now also had a $60 million loan lined up with essentially Stadon Capital to fund its Chapter 11 bankruptcy, a loan it says it needs because very little cash has been generated by the business since it suspended its operations back in March. So, Linktico is filing for bankruptcy. 2 years ago, I said, don't buy from this company. You fast forward 2 years, this company is filing for bankruptcy. So good that everybody listened to me. Now, Brad is what we're going to talk about next. So moving on from Linktico to Brad and Ripple and what happened essentially at the Senate hearing. So as you all know, yesterday I revealed that Brad is going to be essentially doing a Senate hearing. He's going to be discussing essentially the Clarity Act, which is, one of the regulations that Ripple needs, or XRP needs to succeed, to be fairly honest. Before we talk about that, let's go to the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into the next news regarding Ripple and Brad news. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Bull XRP, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? JP, India does not want to burn any bridges. That's true, JP. Let's go. Miles, that's how I built my business, pre-sale on condos. Let's go, JP. Brad, well, I did say you're the one. I did say 99% fail rate, 1% successful rate. And JP, you were in that 1% successful rate. Let's go, JP. Brad handled that situation so good. He did. I agree 100%. Now, Brad Garlinghouse has asked the lawmakers to prioritize the passage of market structure legislation for crypto. So if you want to know what happened with Brad, Ripple's CEO, essentially talking about the Clarity Act with the Senate, well, here it is. Here's the bullet points and what actually happened and what went down. Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, has shown up today to testify before the U.S. Senate to ensure that the US becomes the crypto capital of the world. Just to repeat that one more time, because I think I lost connection there for a second. So Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse has shown up today to testify before the US Senate. He asked the lawmakers to prioritize the passage of market structure legislations for digital assets to ensure that the US becomes the crypto capital of the world. Brad Garlinghouse has said that it is possible because essentially the US poses the world's deepest capital markets, the most advanced technical essentially talent, and the spirit of innovation. According to him, there is no reason the US should not be essentially undisputed leader in digital asset and blockchain, which is facts. Well, everything so far Brad has said is absolute facts. The US is leading in the financial markets. It's the number one used currency, US dollars. They should be leading in the digital world also. In addition, over 55 million Americans participate in the crypto economy. Essentially, that equates to $3.4 trillion market cap today. Brad Garlinghouse has also said that a smart regulatory framework for crypto market structures is essential to realize that future and is not essentially long overdue, which is facts. We're not that far off from a digital future either. And it's a tremendous amount of Americans using cryptocurrencies. Also, going back to what I said, essentially, that regarding how the US should be leading in the digital world, if you're somebody out there that's saying the US should not be leading a digital world, then let me just make it very clear. It's either China that gets to rule a digital world, or Russia gets to rule a digital world, or the US gets to rule a digital world. And as much as there are Americans living in America who hate the US, which makes no possible, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. People that essentially live in a country where they hate the country from head to toe makes zero sense to me whatsoever. But in a digital world, somebody needs to be in charge. It's either going to be US, Russia, or China. And believe me, you want the US in charge. But you want a leader, a great leader in charge of the US for a bright future ahead of ourselves. Someone like Sleepy Joe is just going to be absolute disaster in the digital world to be leading. But somebody like Trump, businessman, knows what he's doing in that aspect, is going to do very well for us in a digital world. So according to him, once the market structure legislation for digital assets becomes law in the US, this will catalyze a new era of US competitiveness and unlock efficiencies essentially in financial transactions, dramatically helping consumers and businesses alike. According to essentially Brad, smart legislation should be based on core principles that consumers and need essential protection from fraud and scams. Markets need proper oversight and bad actors need to be kept in check, and innovation must thrive. He has also asked the lawmakers to first set clear jurisdictional boundaries for many of the financial regulators. He also has asked them to establish pathways for companies to build in the US without sacrificing investors or consumer protection. In addition, he has also asked them to ensure that the US can be a global leader in crypto by taking full advantage of the benefits and efficiencies brought by digital assets and blockchain technology. Ripple's CEO has pointed to the outcomes of the legal and regulatory uncertainty surrounding crypto over the last decade. He has essentially said that it is prohibited a meaningful progress in the US. He said, at Ripple, we've seen firsthand how the lack of clear road rules can be weaponized to target good actors. He said the uncertainty has extended the efforts to the technology jobs and tax dollars that go with crypto that have been pushed over, essentially offshore. This has reduced regulatory oversight and put consumers at a higher risk. From essentially Brad's statements today, Ripple has nearly 900 employees across our 15 offices worldwide, he said. A constructive and workable essentially framework for digital assets and stablecoins that achieves these goals will expand access to financial markets, create jobs, boost the economy. Meanwhile, Ripple's stablecoin RLUSD, which was launched in late 2024, has also hit the $500, essentially $500 million market cap marker in less than essentially 7 months. RLUSD has also received major boost by integrating with Transact, a major cryptocurrency essentially payments platform. Also, Transact has officially integrated support for RLUSD, enabling its 8.3 million essentially users to purchase it using multiple fiat currencies. RLUSD is also immediately available across 64 countries that Transact supports for onboarding. The supported jurisdictions include key markets like the US, the UK, the European Union. The integration essentially has been in the works for about 3 months to ensure regulatory alignments across markets. Everything Brad Garlinghouse has said, I stand by it 100%. Facts. A lot of companies did move offshore because the US wasn't opening its doors to innovation, which was a bad idea because the US was losing crypto investments. There's a lot of crypto investments happening, especially right now in the UAE. So everything Brad said was pretty much on the money. We need a clear path, no more gray areas, and let's bring innovation back into the US and make it the leader. Now, also on the topic of Ripple, some people might have heard this news, some people might not have heard this news, but if you have or if you haven't, here are the bullet points on that news, which is Ripple's bold move towards BNY Mellon partnership essentially initiates institutional crypto adoption. If you have heard about right now, which is essentially Ripple has chosen a custodian, which is BNY Mellon, which is a massive player to be choosing as a custodian for Ripple, in a significant development that underscores the accelerating convergence of traditional finance and the burgeoning essential cryptocurrency world. Ripple XRP has announced a landmark partnership. The blockchain payments company has chosen BNY Mellon, one of the world's oldest and largest custodian banks, to hold the reserves for its upcoming Ripple stablecoin. Do you know what that means? That means when the Stablecoin Act comes through, Ripple's RLUSD is backed by their reserves are essentially backed by BNY Mellon, which means that Ripple's RLUSD is going to get green lighted. So when we have the Genius Act that's going to be passed for stablecoins, and they're going to decide what stablecoin they should be choosing to be allowed inside the United States. And let's not forget, they also said that if the US rejects a particular stablecoin, that stablecoin is not allowed to be operating anywhere else, essentially with any countries that are allies of the US, because they don't want US citizens purchasing that currency if it's not allowed in the US. So just to be essentially, that is a massive power play by Ripple, because that just means to us, it's green lighted. Ripple's RLUSD is going to get green lighted essentially through the Genius Act, the Stablecoin Act that's about to be passed. It's going to get green lighted. And they said that essentially there was a report that showed that USDT, USDC, and essentially RLUSD were on the report for, being investigated to see if they're going to get a green light inside the United States. Well, Ripple has just chosen BNY Mellon. That means RLUSD is green lighted. That's the indication we needed for its upcoming Ripple stablecoin. This essentially streak alliance, initially reported by Unfold on X, marks a pivotal moment reflecting a profound and growing interest from institutional players inside the crypto space. For years, the crypto market has been viewed with skepticism by many traditional financial institutions. However, the narrative is rapidly changing. This collaboration between Ripple, a pioneer in enterprise blockchain solutions, and BNY Mellon, a titan of a global finance, sends a very clear message to the world. Digital assets are no longer a niche, essentially category, but a legitimate and internal part of the future of financial landscape. The move is set to bolster confidence and pave the way for broader institutional crypto adoption. The selection of BNY Mellon as a custodian for Ripple stablecoin reserves is far from a mere administrative detail. It's a streak, essentially masterstroke, that injects an unprecedented level of trust and credibility into Ripple's stablecoin initiative. BNY Mellon brings over 230 years of experience in financial services, managing trillions of dollars in assets. Their reputation for security, regulatory compliance, and robust infrastructure is unparalleled. Now, enhance essentially trust and security. For institutions and enterprises considering using Ripple stablecoin, the backing of a essentially custodian like BNY Mellon provides a crucial layer of assurance regarding the safety and integrity of their reserves. Somebody like Tether can't use BNY Mellon, I'm guessing because they can't show their reserves. Well, Tether had the choice of choosing a custodian in the EU for MiCA regulations, and they didn't, which means they're not going to be choosing one in the US either, because they moved the headquarters to El Salvador. But this essentially mitigates the concerns about operational risk and asset segregation. Now, regulatory comfort. Traditional, essentially, financial institutions operate within a stringent regulatory framework. Partnering with regulated entities like BNY Mellon helps Ripple navigate the complex compliance landscapes, making its stablecoin more appealing to institutional clients who demand adherence to established financial forms. Bridging traditional and digital finance. BNY Mellon has been actively exploring the digital asset space, offering crypto custody services to institutional clients since 2021. This partnership solidifies their commitment and positions them as a key bridge between the old and new financial worlds, fostering essentially interoperability. Stability and operational excellence. BNY Mellon's vast operational capabilities and global reach means that they can handle the immense scale and complexities required for a widely adopted stablecoin, ensuring efficient and reliable management of reserves, essentially. Ripple's journey has long been centered on revolutionizing cross-border payments for enterprises, while XRP, its native digital asset, plays a very crucial role in its on-demand liquidity solution. The introduction of a dedicated Ripple stablecoin also represents an expansion of its ecosystem and a strict move to cater to a broader range of institutional needs. The stablecoin will likely be pegged to a fiat currency like the US dollars, offering the price stability, a crucial essentially factor for enterprise use cases where volatility essentially is a major deterrent, while XRP facilitates the efficient, low-cost international transfers by acting as a bridge currency. Key word here, international. While XRP facilitates efficient, low-cost international transfers by acting as a bridge currency, the stablecoin that Ripple provides, essentially RLUSD, will provide a reliable medium of exchange and store of value within Ripple's ecosystem, complementing XRP's utility. This dual approach allows Ripple to address different pain points in global finance. XRP remains a vital for liquidity and efficient cross-currency essentially settlements, while the stablecoin Ripple has created offers a stable programmable digital currency for a myriad of applications, from rarities to tokenized assets and beyond. This streak essentially diversification solidifies Ripple's position as a comprehensive blockchain solution provider for financial institutions worldwide. XRP for international, RLUSD for more domestic purposes is what's happening. And BNY Mellon as a partner of Ripple, I mean, the deal is sealed, let's just say. Now, let's go inside the comment section. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. I knew that was going to happen. They don't like you to talk about it. Yeah, regarding that. Miles, I've heard that the Fed CEO has resigned today. We'll verify to see if it's true. Ian, let's go. That's amazing if he has. Huge win. Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, has announced his resignation. Let's abolish the Fed then too. Let's go. Hooray. Jerome Powell has resigned. So it's facts. It's true. Let's go. It's true, EMG. Let's go. XRP, let's go. It's a massive move. Powell, you're fired. Sub CMF family, better late than never. Let's go, Christopher. Good to see you. What I do. Everything Rebel's going to do is be in the United States. JP, let's go. Well, if Jerome Powell is fired, then that means essentially, and then there was one, Elizabeth Warren, because the team, the original A team, or should we call B team, was Gary Gensler, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and pretty much Jerome Powell joined into the ranks as well as time went by. Well, Gary Gensler resigned, Jerome Powell, if he's resigned as well, and then there was one. If he was essentially retired, I mean, if he did resign, if he hasn't resigned, give it a little bit of time. He has no choice. Honestly, everybody's turning against him. So if he hasn't resigned, and if it is fake news that's going around, don't worry. Give it some time, he'll resign. He can't sit in that position for too long. Trump will find a way to move him. Ripple, let's go. Won't be long. False claims that the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, has resigned are viral, but no official reports or statements support this. Jerome Powell has not announced his resignation yet. Hello again, everyone. Thompson, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Won't be long, though, eh? Definitely won't be long. No, facts. Also, on that note of me sharing you the last news on tonight's live, which was regarding Ripple choosing BNY Mellon, signing that contract, incredible. BNY Mellon behind Ripple. What more could you want inside the United States? BTC at an all-time new high. Let's go, Christopher, for the update as well. So we have reached the endings on tonight's live. On tonight's live, we talked about essentially Ripple and BNY Mellon. We talked about what Brad Garlinghouse essentially talked about in the Senate. We also went through news on tonight's live regarding the former CEO of Linktago being essentially sued into the ground and bankruptcy is on the way. We talked about President Trump's essential tariff battles with India regarding BRICS currencies. We talked about the US market cap reaching a record of 208%, which Warren Buffett thinks is alarming. Other investors, not so much. We talked about Piper Sandler essentially backing Donald Trump, the investment bank, saying that Jerome Powell should be doing rate cuts. We talked about Emirates Airlines accepting cryptocurrencies. We also talked about tonight's live regarding the Federal Reserve essentially June minutes and the reports that have come out. We went through news also on tonight's live regarding the UK enforcing a very strict ID rules for crypto users in starting essentially January. We also went through news on tonight's live regarding the Clarity Act, which the crypto market space needs. We also went through news on tonight's live regarding the European market space regarding tariffs. So those are all the news essentially that we talked about on tonight's live. Those are all the news topics we talked about on tonight's live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this is called essentially Cynthia Luminous called for him to resign. Interesting. Shelly, thank you for the update. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this is called the CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time, where I share the most recent news regarding cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much everything you need to know about what's happening around you and how far are we from this digital world we're heading towards. So if you want to be updated Monday to Friday, join in 10 p.m. London time into this live. If you watch us on X or on YouTube, This was episode 330 of the CMF Live. Episode 331 will be tomorrow. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Also, if you haven't already, CMF members, take 5 seconds or 2 seconds or even 1 second to like and retweet this live if you're watching this on X, and also put a comment outside the live if you haven't already done that. If you watch this on YouTube, drop a like as well, or essentially put a comment outside the live. And also, if you have subscribed and followed during this live to me, thank you so much and welcome to the CMF family. Now, let's go start the conversation first before we essentially do call the night. Night Miles of CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow sometime as usual. Ripple, let's go. Davey, see you tomorrow, but same time as usual. Ian, thanks. Fax Miles, let's go. Ian, Cynthia Luminous called for him to resign. Let's go. Shelly for the update. Enough of those bloody clowns and their hatred towards cryptos. Let's go, Thompson. Ian, good night, Miles and family. Great live. Many thanks. See you tomorrow. Ian, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. It's getting better and closer daily. See you tomorrow. Let's go free and forever. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Thanks for providing your time to deliver the news. Let's go, CMF. Let's go, Shelly. Thank you so much. And see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Great live as always. Thanks, Miles. Have a great night and see you tomorrow, same time. XRP to the moon. Let's go, Optimistic. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you, Miles. See you tomorrow, brother. Mike, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Don't forget to retweet and like. Let's go, Facts. Funky, bro. Don't forget to retweet and like, everyone. Thank you loads, Miles. Good night, all. Lena, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Very important partnership just before stablecoin regulations. Absolutely is. Facts. Let's go, Orphan. Good night, Miles, and thank you. Love you, JP. Let's go, brother. Love you too. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Jason, great life. Thanks, Miles. Good night, Miles, and CMF. Jason, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles. God bless, brother. Let's go, Kali. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Thanks, Miles. Stormy, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world. Great show, good information as usual. As usual, let's go, Curtis, brother. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Thanks, Miles. Good night. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual, for episode 331 of the CMF Live at 10 p.m. London time, as always, Monday to Friday. Tune in if you're tuning in for the first time. Tune in every night. And if you haven't already, like, comment, and retweet and follow and subscribe. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual, for episode 331 of the CMF Live. Have a good day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. CMF, see you all tomorrow, same time as usual. Take care, Miles and CMF. Rate,